Okay, picture this. You know that sinking feeling when you're staring down a super complicated algebra question on an exam paper? Your heart starts racing, and you suddenly realize that absolutely no clean, easy numbers are going to factorize out of this thing. We've all been there, and it can be incredibly stressful. But what if I told you there's actually an ultimate mathematical cheat code? A foolproof method for quadratic equations that works every single time, literally no matter how messy the numbers get.
Well, here's the absolute best part. The exam boards actually give it to you for free. Right there on the standard GCSE Maths Complete Formula sheet, nestled in the algebra section, is the exact tool we're going to master today. You don't even have to memorize it. You just have to know how to wield it.
Welcome to This Explainer. I am super excited to be your guide today. If you're a student looking for a really focused study guide to boost your grade, you are definitely in the right place. By the time we finish up here, the quadratic formula isn't just going to be some random jumble of letters on a reference sheet. It is going to be your absolute best friend in the exam hall. Let's secure those maximum marks together.
So here is our exam playbook for today. First, Section 1, meet the formula. Then, 2, the step-by-step method. 3, decoding the discriminant. 4, tackling non-calculator exams. 5, common mistakes to avoid. And finally, 6, tips for maximum marks.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, meet the formula.
Okay, so before you can even think about using this formula, your equation absolutely must be arranged in one specific layout. We call it the standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And let me tell you, that equals 0 part is completely non-negotiable. Seriously, why? Well, visually speaking, solving a quadratic just means finding exactly where its graph crosses the x-axis. And where does it cross? Right where y is 0. So if your equation equals, say, 13 or 5x, you've got to rearrange that thing first.
And here it is, the hero of the hour, the quadratic formula itself. X equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You'll want to use this bad boy when an equation is just completely impossible to factorize neatly into brackets. It literally lets you solve for x by just plugging in numbers. And hey, notice that plus and minus symbol right in the middle? That means you've actually got two different paths to calculate, which usually gives you two different solutions for x.
Now, the real secret to this whole process, it's all about carefully plucking out your a, b, and c values from the equation. So, a is just whatever number is attached to the x squared. B is the number attached to the x. And c, well, that's the constant number floating at the end. But listen carefully to this part. You have to keep their positive or negative signs attached to them. Dropping a negative sign right here is basically a fatal error. It'll completely tank your whole calculation, and we definitely don't want that.
Moving right along to Section 2, the step-by-step method. If you follow these 4 golden steps every single time, I promise it will drastically lower your exam anxiety and your mistake rate. Step 1, make the equation equal 0. Step 2, explicitly write down what your a, b, and c are. Step 3, substitute those numbers into the formula. And please, always use brackets around negative numbers. And Step 4, run the calculation twice, once with the plus sign and once with the minus. It's just a simple, repeatable rhythm.
Now, let's talk about a massive hurdle that trips students up every single year, dealing with a negative b value. See, the formula starts with a negative b. So if your b is already negative, say it's negative 11, substituting it actually creates a double negative. Minus negative 11 brilliantly transforms into a positive 11. Oh, and a quick heads up, when you're squaring that negative 11 under the root, make sure you put it in brackets on your calculator. If you don't, your calculator is going to confidently give you the completely wrong answer of negative 121. Yikes.
All right, let's get into Section 3, decoding the discriminant.
So, the discriminant is that specific chunk under the square root, b squared minus 4ac. You can kind of think of it like a crystal ball for the whole math problem. Calculating just this little piece first tells you exactly what to expect. If it spits out a positive number, boom, you're getting 2 real solutions. If it equals exactly 0, the graph just barely touches the axis once, meaning you get 1 solution. And if it's negative, well, the parabola actually never crosses the x-axis at all, which means there are 0 real roots. Knowing this up front saves you from totally panicking if your calculator suddenly throws a math error during the exam.
Which brings us to Section 4, tackling non-calculator exams.
Don't panic if this pops up on paper 1. The strategy remains exactly the same. Literally, the only difference is that instead of reaching for your calculator to get some long, messy decimal, you just do the arithmetic under the square root manually. And you know what? Often, you'll be left with a square root that doesn't even simplify perfectly. That's totally fine.
You just tidy up the numbers, divide the pieces by the bottom number, and leave it in a neat surd format, something like -1 plus or minus 2 root 2. The examiners absolutely love exact answers like that.
Time for some defense. Section 5, Common Mistakes to Avoid.
This piece of advice from the GCSE revision guidelines is absolute gold. It says, keep the full square root value until the final step. The takeaway here is crucial, guys. Never round your intermediate calculations early. Think about it. If you chop off decimal places halfway through the problem, those tiny little errors are going to compound. By the end, your final decimal answer will be pushed completely off target, and that is going to cost you the final accuracy mark. Just don't do it.
And that brings us to a very important number, 2. Specifically, the 2a sitting in the denominator of our formula. I really have to warn you forcefully about this one. A super common mistake is only dividing the square root part by 2a. Visualize the formula for a second. The entire numerator, from the -b all the way to the end of the root, has to sit on top of that fraction line. The whole shebang. Everything gets divided by 2a. Let's wrap things up with Section 6. Tips for maximum marks.
All right, here is your ultimate max marks checklist. First things first, physically write down A equals, B equals, and C equals right there on the page. Why? Because just writing down those simple substitution steps actually secures method marks, even if you totally fumble the calculator buttons later on. Next up, calculate the discriminant on a separate line. It keeps your working tidy and easy for the examiner to read. And finally, if an exam question ever asks you to give your answer to 2 decimal places or 3 significant figures, listen, that is a massive flashing neon hint from the examiner. It's them secretly telling you that the equation won't factorize and you absolutely must use the quadratic formula to solve it.
So, if a single elegant formula can solve the seemingly unsolvable in algebra, imagine what other impossible problems out there just need the right equation. Now that you've unlocked this ultimate cheat code, what topic are you going to master next? Don't let the momentum stop here, guys. Please drop a like on this explainer, subscribe to the channel for more study guides, and let's continue crushing these exams together. Until next time, keep practicing, and remember, structure is your absolute best friend in algebra.